Good morning everyone. Welcome again for our class 11 bio class, and today also we are going to continue with our topic the transport in plants. Few topics are remaining, and after that we will be moving to our second chapter, that is the photosynthesis. So let's start our chapter. So in this chapter, that is the transport in plant, the topics which are remaining, which you have already studied, but I am going to revise it so that you can have a recap of that, which will be beneficial for your board exams. So transpiration, as all of you know, transpiration is loss of water in the form of water vapor from the aerial parts and these aerial parts can be the stem, leaves, flowers, buds, fruits, etc. So all these parts are losing the water in the form of vapor, and so it is called as transpiration. Now transpiration mainly takes place from the structures called stomata, that is the stomatal transpiration. Then it is taken from the lenticels, that is the lenticular transpiration, and very minimum transpiration takes place from the cuticle, that is the cuticular transpiration. So when we have studied about all these stomata, all of you know these are the modified epidermal cells, and lenticels are what? Lenticels are the openings in the bark of old stem, and cuticle is the protective layer over the epidermis. Now this cuticle is secreted by the epidermal layers. So in our syllabus, the mechanism of stomatal transpiration is there. So we are going to study about the mechanism of stomatal transpiration, and you have studied already about it. There are two theories, that is the sugar ion concentration theory and the potassium ion concentration theory. So let's study about each one by one. Now, mechanism of potassium ion concentration theory, first of all we will be studying, and it is also called as the proton transport theory, and it was proposed by Leavitt in 1974. We know that the stomata are open in daytime and they are closed in the night. So in both the conditions there are different mechanisms. So one by one we will be studying both. Now I will be showing only one guard cell. So this is only one guard cell I am drawing here. with the subsidiary cells. Subsidiary cells, all of you know, these are the epidermal cells which are surrounding the guard cells. Then there will be the cell membrane. So what happens during the daytime? Potassium ions enter from subsidiary cells. From the subsidiary cells, potassium ions are entering inside. During daytime, because in the guard cells, chloroplast is there, and the chloroplast is doing the process of photosynthesis, and so glucose is synthesized in the guard cells. This glucose gets converted to malic acid, and this malic acid is broken into malate and hydrogen ions. Now, the malate and hydrogen ions are broken. Malic acid is broken into malate and hydrogen ions. Now, hydrogen ions are exchanged with the potassium ions, and along with the potassium ions, to balance them, chloride ions are also entering into the guard cell. Chloride also enters into the guard cell, and protons from the guard cell come into the subsidiary cells. Once again, I am repeating it, that when the photosynthesis takes place in the chloroplast, glucose is synthesized. This glucose gets converted into malic acid. Malic acid breaks into malate and hydrogen ions, and these hydrogen ions, due to the concentration gradient, they diffuse into the subsidiary cells, and potassium ions along with chloride ions, they move into the guard cells. This increases the concentration of potassium ions in the guard cells, and due to which water from the subsidiary cells enter into guard cells, and the guard cell become turgid. So this I am writing here. Due to the hydrogen ions, osmotic potential of guard cells increases. Therefore, water from subsidiary cells enter into guard cell. By the process of endosmosis. So due to entry of water from subsidiary cell into guard cell become turgid, and stomata are opening. Now this whole process I have written here, and I will be explaining once again step by step. So what is the first step? That is during daytime, in the presence of light, carbon dioxide, water, chloroplasts are synthesizing the glucose in the process of photosynthesis. So first step will be the photosynthesis. First step will be these raw materials. Then second step will be the photosynthesis. Then the third step is the synthesis of glucose. Means with these raw materials, by the process of photosynthesis, glucose is synthesized. Then glucose gets converted into starch. Then starch gets converted into malic acid. That will be the fifth step. Then the malic acid gets broken into malate ions and hydrogen ions. As well as the hydrogen ions, when the hydrogen ions are being synthesized here, these hydrogen ions are exchanged by the chloride ions, potassium ions, and when potassium ions enter into the guard cell, malate ion along with potassium ion make the potassium malate in guard cells. So due to this potassium malate in guard cells, the osmotic potential of guard cell increases. So the sixth step will be the formation of hydrogen ions. Then seventh step will be the exchange of hydrogen ions with the potassium ions. So eighth step is the intake of potassium ions, and this intake is balanced by chloride ions. So both potassium chloride ions enter into the guard cell. Then the ninth step will be the osmotic potential of guard cell increases due to the formation of potassium malate in guard cells. Then the next step is the entry of, due to the osmotic potential of guard cell increases, the water enters into the guard cells by the process of N-osmosis. This creates pressure on the inner wall of the guard cell. So this will be the 11th step to describe. Then due to the pressure on the inner wall of guard cell, the guard cells become turgid. And the next step is, due to the turgidity, the guard cells stretch towards outside and the stomata opens. Okay. So I hope with this you all have understood, and you can write, this is the cycle I have drawn, means what is happening inside the guard cell, and this one guard cell I have explained what is happening inside the guard cell. And these are all steps which you can write in your copy. Now in the night time, when we are talking about the closing of stomata, so how it happens, what is the mechanism? In the night time there is no light, there is carbon dioxide due to the process of respiration taking place inside the guard cell. There will be water available, there will be chloroplast, but no light, so there will be no photosynthesis. When there is no photosynthesis, carbon dioxide and water, when it accumulates inside the guard cell, it forms the carbonic acid. So due to the formation of carbonic acid, the medium of the guard cell becomes acidic. So they will be forming the acidic guard cell with the pH 5.0. Now due to the formation of acidity in the guard cell, this acidity will activate, it will activate the plant growth regulator, that is the ABA. So this is the growth regulator, that is abscisic acid, and we know that it is the stress hormone, and it is released in the case of acidic medium or unavailability of certain plant products. So this hormone gets activated. So I have shown here ABA. So due to the activation of ABA, entry of potassium ion will be stopped. So it will inhibit the entry of potassium ion inside the guard cell. So due to which the potassium ion will come out, and this will cause the removal of potassium ion from guard cell into the subsidiary cells. So what is happening here? When the acidic guard cells are there, this acidity will activate the synthesis of ABA in the guard cell, and this will inhibit the entry of potassium ions, inhibit potassium ion entry in guard cell. I am writing it with small in short form. Inhibits the entry of guard cell, and due to which osmotic potential of guard cells will decrease. So due to the decrease in the osmotic potential of guard cell, now here there will be more water, here there will be less water. So X osmosis will take place, and the guard cells become flaccid, and the stomata closes. Once again I am repeating it. In the night, when there is no light, there will be no photosynthesis, due to which, because CO2 is being synthesized continuously due to the process of respiration. So this CO2 along with water present in the guard cell, it will make the carbonic acid. This will increase the acidity in the guard cell. Due to the acidity in the guard cell, the growth regulator ABA, that is abscisic acid, will be activated, and this growth regulator will inhibit the entry of potassium ion from the subsidiary cells. So due to this, when the potassium ions will not be entering inside the guard cells, the osmotic potential of guard cell will decrease, it will go down, and so there will be exosmosis. Water from guard cell will come out in the subsidiary cell, and this causes the guard cells become flaccid, and this will result in the closure of stomata in the night. Now here we are going to study the mechanism of uptake of minerals. And we know that uptake of minerals, where this will be the carbon and oxygen from atmosphere, then hydrogen we get from water in the soil, and along with hydrogen we get minerals also from soil, and these minerals are in two forms, cations and anions. Now here I have made the diagrammatic representation of the cells of the root, and this will be the xylem, this will be the epidermis, this is cortex, and this is the endodermis. Now we know that in the soil, the concentration of mineral is much lower than the concentration of minerals in the root. Means comparative to root, in the soil the concentration of the mineral ions are much less than the concentration of mineral ions in root. It means that from soil the concentration is low, so concentration of low minerals, concentration of minerals is low, and here high concentration. So from soil the minerals are going from low concentration to high concentration, and so there obviously there will be use of energy, and this energy they are getting from the ATP which we obtain from proton pump. So ATP pump or proton pump also we can say, where they are found? They are found in the membranes of the cells. Every cell generates its own energy in the form of ATP, and this ATP we get from the process of respiration also, and this ATP we get from the process of proton pump or energy pump, which are being generated into the membranes of the cell. So this is called as active transport. Means this transport of minerals from soil to the cells of the root is going by using the energy of ATP. So this transport is called as active transport. So in the active transport, the minerals are passing from soil into the epidermal cell, and by the active transport, and then from epidermal cell to cortical cell, this will be the passive transport. So this you have to keep in mind. When the minerals are absorbed along with water by the root hair cell or the epidermal cell, then water is passively absorbed by the concentration gradient through the process of osmosis. But along with the water, the minerals are absorbed, which are being absorbed from the low concentration to higher concentration, and there they require the energy of ATP. And so through protein molecules, these mineral ions enter into the epidermal cells by utilizing the energy of ATP. Now when these mineral ions, they pass from epidermis to cortical cells, then they are passing without using any energy due to the concentration gradient, because here the minerals are in less concentration than the minerals here. So from the high concentration to the lower concentration, they will be passing by passive transport. And when they are passing from cortical cells to the endodermal cells, then on the passage of them, between the passage of them, there are the checkpoints. And so these checkpoints are deciding how much amount of the minerals has to be conducted, then which minerals has to be conducted, and how they need to be conducted. So these checkpoints are again that these are the some protein molecules which are deciding the amount and the type of molecules which are entering into the endodermal cells. And this entry is always unidirectional. So this will be the unidirectional entry, and here along with the checkpoints there will be, we have studied in our previous session that there will be the Casparian strips also. So these are the thickenings of suberin into the endodermal cells. So these thickenings as well as these checkpoints, they are deciding how much mineral amount or how much mineral ions has to be allowed to pass from cortical cells into the endodermal cells. And then from the cortical endodermal cells, they pass into the xylem cells again by the passive transport. And from here, when they come into xylem, there will be the upward movement of sap, and it is called as translocation. So when the sap is moving into the xylem towards the aerial parts of the plant, this is called as movement of sap or ascent of sap, and it is also called as translocation. Now we'll be seeing the mechanism or we can say that where the minerals are taken from and where they are given into the plant. So from where the minerals are taken, we say it as a source. So source can be the soil, it can be atmosphere. So from soil what we get? We get water and minerals from soil, and from atmosphere we get carbon dioxide. Then from the source, that is the soil or atmosphere, the uptake takes place, means the minerals and the water are taken up and they are transported up into the plant, and this can be by passive, it can be done passively, or it can be actively, just now which we have seen that how the passive absorption takes place, how active absorption takes place. Then when they are taken passively or actively, they are sent to xylem, and in the xylem the water and mineral ions, they together form the sap. Then the mineral ions can be organic, it can be inorganic. Now organic, for example, nitrogen, if we take, the nitrogen in the inorganic form, it can be in the form of ammonia, nitrite and nitrate. That is the inorganic form. And nitrogen in the organic form we get in an amino acids, That is the organic form of nitrogen. Similarly, the phosphorus or sulfur, they are taken majorly in the form of, majority of them is taken in the form of inorganic molecules, and few amount is taken as organic molecules. So from the source, the mineral ions can be organic and inorganic. Then from the source, it is given to the place where it is required. So that place we name as the sink. So this place we name as the sink. So we will be seeing how it is taking place in the sink. So in the sink can be, it can be young leaves, fruits, flowers, flower meristems, seeds, buds, etc. So sink is which place in the plant? Where the minerals brought from the source are utilized. So minerals are mainly utilized in these parts of the plant. Then from here, when they are utilized, they are again remobilized. So where the remobilization takes place? Remobilization means whether they are moving from here anywhere or not. So remobilization of mineral ions, where it is taking place? So from sink, that is the example, young leaf. From sink is utilized. Now we have to see whether from here, from the sink, ions are moving anywhere or not. So this we have to see. So our answer will be yes. From the sink, that is from these parts of the plant, some mineral ions are moving at other parts also. When they are moving? When senescence. Senescence, all of you know? When the leaf or the flower is going to become dried up or dead. So senescing leaf or senescing flower, that is the older parts of the plant. From here, they are given to the another young parts. So which minerals are moving from the sink to the other parts? Minerals which move are nitrogen, phosphorus, sulfur, potassium. Exception is the now why calcium ion is exception? Because calcium ion is making the structural component of these parts of the plant. So the minerals which are utilized in the structural component, these minerals are not moving from zinc to any other part of the plant. Rest all the minerals which are not utilized in the making of any component of that part, these minerals move when the part of the plant is going to become dead. So all these minerals from the older part of the plant move to the younger part of the plant. So this is how the uptake of minerals take place from the source, that is the soil and atmosphere. It is transported through xylem and phloem, and then it is given to the zinc, which is the young parts of the plant, and here these minerals are utilized, and again when these parts are becoming old, these minerals are moving to other young parts of the plant. Now, just now we have seen that the source is root, from where the mineral ions are taken up, and then it is given to the young leaves, etc. to be utilized. But actually in the normal sense, when we talk about the source, we talk about the leaf where the food is synthesized. So source is the tissue, plant tissue, which uploads sugar in phloem. Means in the leaf, the sugar is synthesized by the process of photosynthesis, and then it is given into the phloem. Then phloem takes it and give it to the zinc. So zinc will be the plant tissue where this sugar is going to be utilized for the process of respiration and other activities of the cell. So that will be the zinc. Now when in spring season, when mostly the plant is not having had shed their leaves, and now in spring season when the new leaves are going to come, the buds are going to come, in that case this source becomes reversed. So then in that case the source is the root. So which roots are these? These are the storage roots, where the food is stored. So this stored food from roots is the source, and this is going to the zinc, that is the young buds and the new coming leaves which are going to grow on the plant. So source, when we talk about generally about the tissue which uploads sugar in the phloem. So that tissue will be the leaf. So source will be the leaf, and zinc will be the young parts, that is the flower, fruit, etc. Then if we talk about the direction of translocation, so the translocation takes place in two ways. One is through the xylem and the other is through the phloem. So in the xylem it is unidirectional, means from roots to above aerial parts. It is always unidirectional. But when we talk about the phloem, it is always bidirectional. And so we can also say it is variable. It is also going upward direction, lateral direction, and the downward direction. So why we call it bidirectional? Mainly because it is going upward direction to upper area parts of the plant from the leaves, and it is taking the food prepared in the leaf to the lower parts, that is up to the roots also. So The translocation by phloem is in the bidirectional way. So, in this, to prove this that the food is translocated through phloem, we have studied one experiment, that is the girdling or ringing experiment. Let us just repeat it. In that experiment, what we have done, we had taken a potted plant. A potted plant is taken and its phloem part is removed. So this xylem part is removed, and this removal in the form of ring from the stem is called as ringing or girdling. Xylem is removed and this inner part is the phloem, and these are the leaves. They will be doing the process of photosynthesis. So the food will be transported from the leaves through this phloem, and it will be moving up also. So what will happen after some time, because food is being transported to the lower parts also, what will happen? This part is being removed. So here there will be the swelling. Now this is the, this I have made the phloem. So this will be the phloem and this is the xylem. Xylem is remaining, no? Because water is being supplied to the plant. So from here the water is being supplied to the plant and the food is coming through the phloem from the leaves into this direction. But because in this part there is no phloem here, so what will happen? The food will collect in this part and there will be the swelling in this part of the stem, and so after some time the roots will come out from here. So this proves that the food is transported through phloem. Once again, we have girdled the stem of the plant. So the outer part, which is containing the phloem, is removed, and the inner part, which is the xylem, it is intact in the plant, and from this part the water is going supplied, water and mineral is being supplied to the plant. So the leaves are synthesizing the food. So this food, when it is going down, this food cannot go down because the phloem is not present here below this part. So the food will collect in this region and it will cause the swelling of this part and it will give out the roots also. After some time this part will be dead and the roots will be formed here only. So this proves that the food is transported or translocated through the phloem. Now this is done by one more technique and we call it the tracer technique. Tracer technique. In the tracer technique, what is done? This leaf is kept in the environment of CO2, which is containing the radioactive carbon. So this whole environment is the environment where the carbon dioxide is containing the radioactive carbon. So when this leaf will synthesize the food with this carbon, all the food which is being formed, that is the glucose or the starch, it will be containing the carbon, that is the radioactive carbon. So when this food is transported here, and if we are going to test this food by this method, it will be being transported up to here, it will swell up. So this will prove that the food is transported through phloem. And further, if we are going to test the presence of carbon, type of carbon in that food, this carbon will be of radioactive carbon. So this will prove that the food is translocated through the phloem only. Now, for the translocation of the food synthesized in the leaves, the hypothesis is given for the mechanism, and this hypothesis is given by the scientist Munch in 1930. So it is also called as Munch mass flow or pressure flow hypothesis for the mechanism of translocation. So he demonstrated the experiment. The diagram I have made here. So in this diagram there are the osmometers placed in the beaker of water, and this is osmometer A, this is osmometer B, and these osmometers are connected with the delivery tube, that is capital T, and the water containers are also connected with one another by the tube small t. Osmometer A contains the concentrated sugar solution, and osmometer B contains the very dilute sugar solution. So what happens when because of the high concentration sugar solution in the osmometer A, water potential increases, or we can say the osmotic pressure increases, due to which the water from the osmometer B keeps on coming into it, and due to the concentration gradient, the sugar molecules are also passing into the osmometer B. So water keeps on entering into it, and sugar, due to the concentration gradient, keeps on coming from osmometer A to osmometer B, and this process will go on till the concentration of both the osmometers become equal. Now if suppose by any process the sugar molecules from osmometer B are being removed continuously, so the process will also continue, the process will never come to end. So this is the hypothesis given by Munch, is accepted for the phenomena of being uploading and unloading the food by the phloem. So this will be studying with another diagram. Now, according to the Munch hypothesis, we will be seeing the phloem translocation of food through the phloem. So, phenomena of translocation through the phloem involves two steps. One is phloem loading and the other is phloem unloading. So here I have made the model of the phloem loading and unloading, the diagram. These are the cells of the leaf. This is the cell of the leaf, that is the source. And in this leaf, the food is synthesized here, and it is actively, that is the glucose which is synthesized, this glucose is actively transported to the companion cell of the phloem. From the companion cell, the food enters into the sieve tube elements of the phloem. Now, here, due to the movement of glucose molecules here, the high turgor pressure develops in this region. Why this develops? Because the movement of molecules in this region of the glucose increases the osmotic pressure in this region, due to which water from the xylem, this is the xylem, so water from the xylem will enter into the sieve tube elements. Why? Because the glucose molecules are concentrated here in this region of the sieve tube. So here, due to the movement of water, there will be high turgor pressure developed. But below, in the below regions, because there is no glucose molecules, so in these regions there will be low turgor pressure. So this will be developing the pressure potential or pressure gradient here, and the sap of the phloem will move from high pressure potential to low pressure potential. So food will move down like this. Wherever above also it will be moving down, because there also there will be low pressure potential. So food moves down here, and here we can see the companion cells in the low turgor pressure region, and here this is the phloem in the sink region. So this was the phloem coming from the leaf down and coming into the sink region. Sink will be what? Any young leaf, any young fruit or young bud, flower, etc. So when the sink region, this phloem reaches, here the pressure is low, so the food moves down and it enters into the companion cell. When the food enters into the companion cell, here the food will enter, so the pressure potential will become lower here. Why? Because the glucose molecules now entered into the companion cells, and so there will be the less osmotic pressure here, due to which water from phloem will go back into the xylem, and the food from companion cell will move into the sink region, and this can be the storage cell, this can be the flower cell. For the development of flower, it requires energy, etc. So this is how here in this region the phloem is loading from source tissue to the phloem cells, and here in the sink region the food is being unloaded. So this will be the phloem unloading, and when the food is being unloaded, pressure is decreasing, osmotic pressure decreasing, so water will go back into the xylem. Again it will be taken upward direction. So this is how the mechanism of translocation of food takes place in the phloem. Now one more definition is left in this chapter, that is the hydrothode. This also you have studied in class 10. Hydrothodes are what? These are the special openings where in the leaves which are growing in the region where there is too much moisture is there. So in these regions the special openings are there, and these openings are called as hydrothodes. So in these plants the water is lost in the form of water drops. So these plants which have the hydrothodes, that is the special openings, they lose the water in the form of water drops. And so this type of transpiration is called as guttation. So the loss of water in the form of water is called as guttation, and it takes place through the specialized pores called as hydrothodes. So by this chapter is over. I hope all have understood everything. If not understood anything, you can repeat the video and try to understand. You have the book with you. You can open the book also and try to understand with the video. And all of you, again I am telling, all of you go on making the notes of the topics which I am explaining in every session. Okay, thank you.